I want and we all need diverse teams, founders, makeups of companies, but because it impacts performance of the company. We're seeing, women in positions of leadership in companies make companies perform better. That's just good business.
Welcome to She Invests. Join us every week for conversations focused on the growing number of female angel investors, the real unicorns. You'll hear from existing female angel investors, VCs, and fund managers on their investment thesis. From deal flow to exits, they will share the best practices that contribute to their success. Female angel investors will be equipped with the tools and resources to confidently activate their capital in order to make an impact in their community and the global economy. With your host, active angel investor and founder of Hera Angels, Dr. Sylvia Ma.
We have the honor of having the amazing Amanda Lettman on the She Invest podcast. Amanda Lettman, a U.S. Air Force veteran, is an executive entrepreneur and an angel investor with 20 years of global business operations and transformation expertise with startups and Fortune 500 companies in the high-tech, insurtech, and fintech industries. As a CEO of Kardia Ventures, Amanda consults with tech enterprises and startups on digital business optimization. In addition, she is co-founder and COO of the insurtech data analytics company, Simple Inc. Amanda holds an MBA in technology management. She is a host at ESPN 1700 Biz Talk Radio and a business advisor at the Founder Institute, Girls in Tech San Diego, and Smart Money Veterans. Welcome to the show. So welcome, Amanda, to the She Invest podcast.
Thanks for having me, Sylvia. Appreciate it.
So, Amanda, you are our first veteran investor. This is so exciting.
That's super cool. I love that.
I know. So I want to kind of get into that ethos of who you are as an investor, but really from that veteran aspect of it. What do you see as a veteran investor in your investments that is uniquely you?
Well, uniquely me is just being a veteran in general. I have a huge sense of patriotism and service, to others. It's why I joined the Air Force. I love supporting other veterans and veteran entrepreneurs. So as a part of my thesis, one thing I do like to do is have, a female founder and or a veteran founder. I just think it's a matter of principle that I pay it forward, some of those that I can. That's sort of the tact that I take. I do find that when I'm looking at veteran founders, I see a lot of the characteristics I see in leaders in the military, loyalty and grit and rolling up the sleeves, and a lot of things I would look for in a founder, a coachable founder, somebody who's just going to really go out and get stuff done.
I love that pay it forward aspect of it. I was just at the Athena Pinnacle Awards last night, and we were talking about investing in a woman or having a woman on a leadership team or in a corporate setting is not just a good decision. It is a good business decision. And a lot of people don't think that. What do you think about that when people tell you that?
Well, I absolutely, I've been reading some of the studies that have been coming out. And as I judge and coach a lot of these panels, which, you sat on one last week with me, in the back when I'm interviewing these folks that are pitching, I'm asking these questions about diversification, not so much because I want and we all need diverse teams, founders, makeups of companies, but because it impacts performance of the company. We're seeing, women in positions of leadership in companies make companies perform better. That's just good business. So that's not just what's needed, but it's good business, and it's better return on investment for angel investors or investors in general. So that's important.
That diversity of thought to get out of groupthink is how we transform, and how we transform that business to look forwards. So I know that you've worked with a lot of businesses in Silicon Valley and here in San Diego. Walk me through that, because I am always impressed that you go up and down and you meet so many people. What are the themes that you see that for those startups that are those thriving startups, what are they doing right?
My background is that I did move to San Diego from Silicon Valley. I lived up there for about 6 years. I was an executive running mergers and acquisitions with Adobe systems up there. I had a great time, but then moved my business down here with Adobe. And when I decided to depart Adobe and start my own startup again, I actually took Silicon Valley angel and VC funding. So while I live here in San Diego, I moved my current company up there and proceeded to operate the company there with some great, tech talent and some great executive talent. And so I did do the back and forth quite a bit to get, just to ramp up the company. But I was involved in those communities prior to my current startup too. And so people often ask me the question of how did I get even started in angel investing? And so I'll go that direction.
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, I'll go that direction.
Start there. That would be great.
I was up there and I have been involved in tech for, let's call it 20 years. I'm fascinated by it. It's why I wake up in the morning. I love it. And so I've always worked in that industry. And, as you know, everyone's familiar that Silicon Valley is just the heart and hub of that. The technology thinking innovation tank of the US, I would say, or some would say. So as I was up there, I don't think you can really turn your head sideways without being involved in a conversation that's around innovation, high tech, the newest, latest, greatest tech, the newest IPO, you're just so entrenched in the conversation. And that can be a great and a challenging thing at the same time. But that's what I found when I was there, is that while I was working in a corporation and involved in tech, I always had my side business, Kardia Ventures, where I was coaching executive clients, and some of those being entrepreneurs. So I was hearing about the ecosystem. I was involved in the innovative aspect of tech and some of the things going on in Silicon Valley. And so I started really getting involved in understanding what was going on in the new tech, the new entrepreneurial adventures people were taking. And that's sort of how I got involved. Because if I back up even further and go to when I was younger, I always had a fascination with finances. And so, I can remember my first subscription to a magazine was Money Magazine. It wasn't a Cosmo or a, Madame Claire or any of these women's magazines. It was Money Magazine. And I'm sure that makes me a bit of a geek, but I don't care. I was fascinated with it. I was fascinated with picking up and learning anything I could about financial aspects, the markets, who was doing what was going public, what were people investing in. And I made my first investments into public markets, when I was probably 18. And so I did very well. I learned everything I could about the public markets, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, you name it. And then I also decided to invest in a bit of real estate. And so between the two, and when those did well, I reinvested those into the market. And so I was constantly feeding my own thesis of investment that was outside of angel investing. And then about 6 or 7 years ago, when I was in the Valley and had thrived through my career and my investments, I decided the next big leap to take into angel investing.
But that's a very more risky asset class. How did you do that leap?
Yeah, I started in syndication, which I highly recommend. I follow the same mindset as I do in software or building anything. It's start small, work big. So if you're going to fail, you might as well fail at something that's smaller, a smaller risk. And I think a lot of people make that mistake, is that they go into angel investing thinking that their check size needs to be quite hefty. And I just don't believe that. So I started small and I started learning about syndication on platforms like AngelList. And there are many out there. But that's where I started. I started by doing the research on who did I want to syndicate with? Who was out there that knew and understood angel investment, who was making the type of investments that would look interesting to me at the time. And that thesis actually hasn't shifted in the slightest for me. We can go there. That's how I started with syndication. It's something I would highly recommend to a new or budding angel investor.
I love that. Let's go deep into the thought process of that syndication, and then kind of touch into how to do that. Because I know I work on AngelList as well, but sometimes it's a big black box of how do I do this as an individual? So let's talk about why syndication and what is syndication.
Yeah, so syndication is really a less risky way to use your funds as an angel investor. You're essentially pooling your money, your investment money into let's call it a fund, that fund writes the check into the entrepreneur. So it's a way to keep a clean cap table for an entrepreneur. That's a benefit. And then the syndicate lead, usually receives a carry or a charge, a fee from the folks syndicating. So I would say, based on your second question, the challenge there is, though, finding out who you want to syndicate with. I would say a couple different criteria is that these folks, for me, my criteria would be these folks have been serial entrepreneurs. So they not only understand the mindset of the investor, but they understand the mindset of the entrepreneur, what's needed in an entrepreneur. So they're hopefully good at understanding the mindset and what is needed. They're also good at asking for what they need on the actual syndicate. So some examples of that would be pro rata rights, or governance documents, feedback from the entrepreneurs to the greater community. Everyone has a thesis there. So those are a few that I look for. I wouldn't invest in a syndicate if they didn't have that. So when I look across AngelList as an example, I seek out syndicated investors that have just done really great deals in the space that I am looking for.
And what about due diligence in that syndication criteria? We have serial entrepreneur, we have asking for what they need as a syndicate lead, due diligence, and also maybe experience as an investor is another criteria.
Absolutely. I would say that, my thesis doesn't change just because it's a syndicate. My thesis would be, and that kind of rules the level or idea around due diligence. So first, starting off with my investment criteria or thesis would be, I consistently focus on software as a service, enterprise platforms, making it easier for enterprise businesses to be efficient. That's somewhere I've thrived in my career. It's definitely something that I understand, and I don't want to diversify out of something big that I understand. I also see the power of them, and I believe that they are going to pretty much transform the world. And so because of my passion around them, my experience with them, and my belief that all businesses need these transformative platforms and that there is a market for it, that's where I place my bets. So that's one. Another one would be product, market fit traction. So I do not invest in pre-revenue companies. And they're typically pre-revenue companies are not getting syndicated on AngelList. There are a few, but most syndicate investors are looking for some type of revenue, be it $10,000 a month or who knows, $150,000 a month. But these are entrepreneurs that are typically serial entrepreneurs they're investing in, and they have multiple levels of traction, either free users, scalability, revenue per month, and so on. In addition, projected runway. So focusing on founders who are cash efficient, who have 12 plus months of runway once they raise this particular round of funding, so that they can be a more cash efficient business. We're not in this to fund salaries of founders and things like that. I'm sure you've heard a million times. And then, like I said before, rights for future rounds. So pro rata rights, because we're investing pretty early for seed or Series A. Fair valuations. Something's valued at $50 million, which was something offered to me last week. It's not in my wheelhouse at this time. So fair valuations. And then again, like I said, as a matter of principle, I look for diverse teams. So woman founder, veteran founder, underrepresented founder. I just think that's important. It's important for the world, and it's important for good business.
I completely agree. And talking about that diversity and women and veterans, you have a new platform right now of really bringing women of impact into the world, to highlight them, to give them a voice. So let's talk about that a little bit. What is this new thing that you're doing?
Yeah, it's really exciting. And thank you for asking. So I am doing a new radio show, on-air radio show with ESPN Biz Talk 1700 AM radio. And it's live here in San Diego every Wednesday from 2 to 3. It is a series that I helped build with the radio studio, the great team at Biz Talk Radio. The reason that I built the Women of Impact series is I just have a fundamental belief that, when I look across my networks of successful women, I think there's a belief by some that women really sit around, let's say, and discuss challenges or problems. And I actually don't find that to be the case. I actually think that women are more progressive than they're often, thought of being. And when I go around the table and sit with women, successful women friends, my community, we're talking about big data science and platform companies and where the direction of the Russian politics are going and you name it. We're really thinking more broadly about our businesses and what impacts we're making as business people, right? So I want to cure a little bit of this stigma that business women are not talking about these things. So creating a platform of impactful business women who are having the discussions, not only about their stories, but their aha moments, their successes, their failures, where they're headed as business women with not only themselves and their own, soul, but their business and the soul of their business, what they're putting out in the world.
I love that. Also that DNA of that business, because that's so transformative of saying, okay, what is the culture? What's the DNA? And how am I using the products that I have going out in the workplace that really, shows what I'm made of?
Right. I call it a person's vibe. That's just something I kind of came up with in my business. And I just have this fundamental belief that there's about 6 tenets of being an impactful person. When I look across successful business people and women, I say that, that I look across the community and I see dedication. Right? You're dedicating yourself towards something bigger. Your ethos gives your larger life a purpose. And that usually feeds into a person's business, because I would say in general, I believe the statistics show that most business women and women angel investors for that matter, invest in more mission-driven, social impact, social good style companies. They want to obviously make a profit. That's a given. But they want there to be an impact or some kind of legacy in what they're doing. That certainly applies to me in my investments. I know I've heard you say it before, and pretty much everyone around me. So I also believe that a tenet of impactful people is that they constantly commit to improvement. They have this thirst for growth. And that they're sharing. They leave their ego behind and they share and engage in mutually beneficial ways. They just tend to be more partnering type style of people. And then focus. They focus on future impactful potential. So not just problems of now, but really taking a look at the future and focusing on the potential of the future. So bringing those up. That they know, like students, as an example, something that you do. I often go and speak to students, bachelor's and master's students who are pitching in competitions, because I believe these are certainly our next consumers, right? Let's call them millennials. And these are certainly our next entrepreneurs and founders of socially good companies. So it's important to place a little bit of our time there. And then the last 2 for me would be like embracing the journey, the unfolding of life as the goal itself. So constantly being in that striving methodology for yourself. And then certainly helping others as you rise to the top. I don't believe that you can't help others rise to the top in the same way. So those to me are the 6 I call them tenets of being impactful. And when I think about the show and who I've invited on the show thus far, those are the things that I see in them. And they just happen to also be amazing business people.
I love that. So let me make sure that I got this right, because I want to learn so much from you. So the 6 tenets are dedication, commitment to improvement, sharing, focus, embracing the journey, and helping others.
Correct.
Love that. Because that's about really creating a better community, a better society in general.
Agreed. I formed a group here in San Diego that's going to kick off in the next couple months. So let's call it a speaker series, for lack of better word. And it's a part of my brand called Kardiavibe. So Kardia Ventures is my major brand, but Kardiavibe is a speaker series group that essentially is an offshoot from this ESPN radio show, where it won't just be women. It'll be everyone involved, because I believe that we need that. We need this sort of Zen balance of masculine and feminine in our lives. And that's important. We can all learn from each other. So allowing a platform to showcase talent, to showcase inspirational and impactful people. I think people are, they're yearning for that. When I think about where I want to spend my time, I'd rather spend my time there than it's something mindless. It's such a big room of people that I'm not really meeting the impactful people that are going to propel my life forward.
Love that, because Kardia Ventures, I've always seen it and known what you're doing. So what is that, the venture, company all about? We heard about Kardiavibes. We heard about the radio show. What else are you kind of working on? Because you're always dynamic. You're always all over the place, and really want to capture what you're doing.
Sure. So I own a company called Kardia Ventures. It is not by the name of venture capital company. It's really a consulting company that will one day have a thesis of having a fund. Right now it doesn't. So it's really based on my background in business transformation and optimization. I've worked in, high-tech business transformation for about 20 years. It's something I love to do. And so I use this company as I'm a consultant to help business optimization inside enterprises and startups. And really, it's implementing changes in those startups and enterprises that drive organizational performance as well as individual excellence. So it's focused on the strategic potential of the entire business vision. It's helping companies get faster time to value and increased ROI, helping the customer journey, increased customer insight within the businesses, streamlining operational processes and values, and really maximizing systems. So again, back to the platforms, my passion for platforms is, and this is why I start in the startup communities. I've been in the enterprise community where I've seen them work as a foundation, and startups can really start on those and propel themselves so that they're ready for the growth and the scaling that they need to become successul.
And working in those tech companies and being that strategist, what do you see as a forefront of tech right now?
I go back to platforms and data. I'm known for saying data is king. I say it a lot. I love data, and I think that we can't really drive good business without it. So big data, data analytics, NLP, AI, any of these big innovative aspects to big data driving business is super important and just cutting edge. I don't think businesses can really start and thrive without these aspects anymore. They can't afford to. Utilizing big data. I think I just had an article in San Diego Voyager magazine where I said,
was fascinating.
Thank you. The technology excellence will consist of digitization, process redesign, automation, and very advanced big data analytics. So I just see point-to-point integrations disappearing. I see bigger APIs, the reduced number of systems in businesses, and all of these things really are focused on increased profit, productivity, innovation, and collaboration.
I love that. Can you go down ICOs, initial coin offerings on that aspect of it? Oh my goodness. That's too volatile.
It is. It's funny. I do keep my head in the game in terms of trying to keep up abreast of what's going on there. I do love the aspect of blockchain, although I think in its formation and existence right now, it will transform. It will be something different. But I like the premise of it, that it's essentially a ledger for future business. And so I do see benefit and future investment in that. Although in terms of cryptocurrency, I'm very lightly invested in that. I'm more focused on what platforms can do for enterprise businesses. I do see and have heard, of course, in Silicon Valley, a lot of the even growth startups starting to do ICOs. I'm reading about it, but I'm not highly invested in that area.
But that's what I love about angel investing in our world that we live in is that it's a portfolio view of saying, you know what, I like that. I want to know about it. Maybe I invest in a company or I become something for a company or syndicate like you have and learn more about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think we can do that as investors, but also, myself, I would say for me, I haven't done that as much. And I think that's because there's a difference in my mind between being a full-time investor and a part-time investor. And so when you look across great people, Jason Calacanis as an example that a lot of people know and love, Zach Coleus, Jake Gibson, a lot of these guys up in the Valley, they are full-time investors. This is their job. This is what they go out and do every day. They're shaking hands. They're making deals. They're networking. They're meeting their portfolio companies. I'm not. And so I have to realistically take a viewpoint that says I'm a business owner of two companies, one funded company. And so, I have a fiduciary responsibility to not only my own business, but my funded business and my investors to produce and be successful in those companies. So I like to say my angel investing is my side gig. And I have a great investor friend who often says I work so that I can fund my investment habit.
I love that.
It's so great. It's so true too, because it's such a great journey to be an angel investor. But for me, it's definitely not a full-time aspect. So I have to balance being a businesswoman and this aspect of making great investments and doing the right style of due diligence that fits my portfolio and my thesis and my life.
Going down that portfolio, can you talk about any of your, let's say, most successful or exciting portfolio companies?
Yeah, right now I would say, I'm averaging about 10 in my portfolio companies. I did a couple great investments. Alto IRA is one. It's an investment platform for SEP IRAs, making the process fast and easy. SEP IRAs is something all entrepreneurs and business owners should understand and know about. It's an alternative way to make investments into, non-qualified type of investing. So you can use this for real estate, angel investing, that type of thing. So it fits right into my thesis. Another one is Parsley. It's an intelligence-based audience attention for the industry. So again, I won't mention them all, but so each of my portfolio companies, again, they follow my thesis of being software as a service platform companies with high tech. Most of them are using some kind of data analytics, data-driven algorithms to propel their business and or AI, machine learning, et cetera. So I'm really fascinated by the use of big data inside platforms that are making businesses and consumers thrive. And that's where most of my portfolios sit.
So I know we only have a couple more minutes. So anything else that you want to talk about with Kardia Ventures or the radio show or, I did have a last question about, and this kind of goes into that, though, these last couple minutes is what makes San Diego amazing? Because I know you've gone through you go into two ecosystems, this Silicon Valley ecosystem and San Diego, but you're really such a force here in San Diego that I would love to hear what you feel is the thriving aspect of the San Diego startup ecosystem.
Yeah, I would go to the people, right? So it's one of the reasons that I moved back down to San Diego. I'm a San Diego native, born and raised. I moved to the East Coast for many, many years, ran businesses in DC and all over the East Coast, a little bit around the globe, and then moved to Silicon Valley from there. So from the DC, dog eat dog type of environment into tech innovation of Silicon Valley. And, my soul was really searching for my own Mecca again. And San Diego is that for me. And I think what that's about for me is the people. I don't find that people here in San Diego have as large of egos, let's say. And I find that everyone that I run into seems to be a connector. There's really no, investment meetings, business meetings that I take that doesn't say, what can I do for you? Who can I help you network with or meet? Or, what can I find for you? And I think it's the spirit of San Diego, right? It's just, maybe it's that beachy mindset. But the people here, to me, are my people. They're connectors. They have a sense of community. And I love that.
And I also love to, you are connected into different ecosystems, DC, Silicon Valley, and all of us also are always loudspeakers to others. So it's not just that we're all siloed and we're like, San Diego is awesome and let's go to the beach. It's more of like, San Diego is awesome and we're collaborative. And by the way, I have networks everywhere.
That's true because, when I do go to Silicon Valley, my one business is headquartered in the space inside Plug and Play. And so when I'm there, I'm typically hearing 10 to 15 pitches a week by folks that may or may not be in the industries I'm looking for, but they just happen to be pitches. So I'm up there learning, networking. I certainly have my own group of angels that have invested in me, and just there's great communities all over the United States that are helping people thrive. It's just San Diego's the one I know and love.
Wonderful. And we love having you here. I mean, I love our group of female angel investors and venture capitalists that are really trying to make a difference here in San Diego.
I do too.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for it.
Yes. So the final 4 questions are, one is, what's your favorite angel investing resource?
I would have to say probably Angel Capital Association, and just great information, great webinars, great meetings. I know you're involved in them too. It's just a great network of not only people, but actually delivery of knowledge. So you're constantly sort of keeping up on what's the latest and greatest.
Yeah, I also like ACA because if you are part of an angel group, we didn't talk about angel groups. This is like the first podcast we didn't talk about angel groups, which is great. I love it. I'm like, yes, diversity of thought. But if you are part of an angel group, you can have access to ACA. So that's just always and Hera Angels is a ACA member and other ones across the United States. So that's a great avenue to get that information. So thanks for bringing that up. My second question is, what's your favorite book?
My favorite book, and not to be brash, but the title of the book is A Subtle Art of Not Giving a Bleep, by Mark Manson. And again, I want to keep it clean, but the point here is that you can't take on the world. And something I learned, as a coach especially, is that when you say yes to things, you're always saying no to things. And so you have to decide, knowing your purpose and aligning your yes and no's is very important. So I think that's the essence of that book for me.
I have to learn a little bit from that then.
We all can.
Saying no like 10 times and then you feel more comfortable about it.
Absolutely.
Number 3 is, who has been a major influence in your life?
Yeah, I would immediately go to a gentleman. His name is General Jane. He's a retired Air Force general that hired me into the semiconductor industry. He really gave me that sort of tech purpose and vision. And that was, 18, 19 years ago at this point. But along the way, not only him, but others, I really feel like they've had one thing in common. And it's to encourage me to step into my own power at all times, despite the fear. When I look back, that's the essence of what he did for me.
And you have stepped boldly into that essence.
Thank you.
Number 4 is, what does abundance mindset mean to you?
I always say this, that I live in an abundance paradigm. And I think it's living with the mindset that the universe provides. I don't believe that there's any scarcity. I believe it's all a timing issue, right? So letting go so that goodness can sort of flow in. There's nothing lacking.
And I think that goes back to your first magazine, the Money Magazine, is that a lot of women feel kind of anxious about money. And when we do let go, it will come.
Absolutely. It's a byproduct.
Exactly. So, well, thank you so much, Amanda, for being part of the podcast. I am just blessed to know you and honored for you to be part of this collaborative, network of amazing, amazing women.
I'm so happy to be a part. Thanks, Sylvia.
Thanks. what an invigorating discussion we had with Amanda Lettman. She is our first investor who is actually a veteran also. I had to ask her what were the 3 qualities of a startup leader from the veteran mindset that she looks at. There were 3. 1 is loyalty, number 2 is grit, and number 3 is coachability. And then I asked her, how did she take the leap into investment? And she said syndication. So of course I asked, what does she typically look at in a syndication partner? And she said her criteria are 4. 1 is the investor needs to be a serial entrepreneur. Number 2 is the investor clearly needs to ask what they need in the syndicate. Number 3, the syndication partner has experience as an investor. And last but not least, the investor thesis must align with Amanda's thesis. I love that she's hosting a new Biz Talk radio series all about women leaders, and she strongly believes that women are more progressive than they are thought of being. Then I asked, let's dive into that success factor. And she actually has 6 tenets of successful business leaders. They are, number 1, dedication around legacy and impact. Number 2, commit to improvement. There needs to be a thirst for growth. Number 3, sharing and being collaborative. Number 4, focus, especially around future. Number 5, embrace the journey of entrepreneurship. And number 6 is helping others. What a discussion we had with Amanda Lettman. We are honored. We are blessed to have her as part of the She Invests series of amazing female investors making an impact in the investor world.
Thank you for listening to and subscribing to the She Invests podcast. Go on over to sheinvest.com for the full show notes for this episode, as well as any resources, websites, and opportunities mentioned during the show. Sign up for the sheinvest.com newsletter to learn about events like our annual Kardia Venture Summit during the month of September and our She Invests monthly investor circles. Thank you for your time, talent, and treasure.